So that was Christmas then, and that was New Year, but it's good to get back to normal. It's good to get back to bonus. For the gameplay this week, I have a PC game for you called Spin Tires, which is a little bit like Euro Truck Sim 2, but with a lot of mud. You'll see. I picked it up in the Steam sale at the end of last year, and I think it might be my favourite indie game that was released in 2014. It's interesting, quite challenging, and I think it's kind of good fun. Anyway, let's get to the questions. Has it really been the 5th of December the last time I did a bone? I'm sorry about that. I got ill in the middle of December. I think I had full-blown flu. And since then, I've just been lost in a cascade of Christmas and New Year and all that sort of stuff. Although, on the plus side, I did make quite a lot of progress with Crush, so that's good news, at least. Anyway, let's get some questions answered. Let's see who's first. AdamCube5 says, "Hey Stu, will there be a video for the G3 in Iconic Arms?" Yes, probably. Eventually, assuming that Iconic Arms runs for a few seasons at least. There's actually a bit of a trend emerging with the opening episode of each of the seasons. I think it's always going to be a Cold War icon. So first of all, it was the AK-47. In Season 2, it's going to be the M16. So, AK-47, M16, what's the third one in that sequence? Well, it's probably the FNFAL. The right arm of the free world and probably the third most important Cold War weapon. Now for Season 4, I think the G3 might very well be our lead weapon. I like to do country end caps, so I'm starting on an American weapon in Season 2, and I'm going to end on an American weapon as well. For Season 3, with the FNFAL, I'll start on a Belgian weapon, and I'll end on a Belgian weapon. Probably the P90, I think. So if I do the G3, I'll probably end on a German weapon. Maybe the Luger, something like that. But anyway, that's months and months and possibly years ahead in the future. Well, not years, but a year maybe. But yes, the G3 is probably going to come up at some point. So many Iconic Arms, and only 6 per season. The One Nido says, "You say you don't like portable systems. Do you ever emulate games from portable systems? The Game Boy Advance, for example, has some really good games like Fire Emblem, and you can get almost Game Boy Advance ROM you want. Largely the same case with the DS." I wouldn't say that I don't like portable systems. I actually do like them. They're dinky and they're cute and they're nice. It's not the fact that I don't like them. I do. It's just the fact that I don't play on them, even if I've got them. Anyway, as far as emulation, yeah, I mean, I've done my fair share of portable game emulation. A lot of Game Boy stuff. I used to emulate Game Boy games quite frequently. And sometimes, you know, for the sake of a video, a portable game might come up. So there have been a couple of instances where I've recorded portable games like that. It's a shame 3DS isn't emulatable at the minute. I'm sure there's some projects, but I don't think they're feature complete yet. Gage Gorham says, "Hey Stu, what do you think about doing an Exotic Arms series? You would give the history and the facts of more exotic and unknown weapons instead of well-known weapons." It's a possibility. I do quite like rare weapons, like the Well Rod, the silent British World War II pistol, and the Delisle carbine, like covert weapons that really don't see much use. The WA-2000 as well, that's a nice one. The only trouble with the truly exotic and rare firearms is that they don't always appear in that many games. Some of them do. I think, like for instance, the WA-2000 is, well, that verges on iconic. It was in a James Bond film, and there have been plenty of video game depictions of it. It was in Black Ops, it was in Modern Warfare 2. So some exotic weapons do have a certain iconic status, but some are much rarer, like they'll only appear in a couple of games. Maybe there's the potential for like a compendium of, 5 or 10 exotic weapons that appear in video games, as like a special. It's food for thought anyway. Sergeant Bobathan says, "Stu, you always mention ideas for future videos, and you say that you're going to do them, but you don't most of the time. Why?" I quite like talking about future video ideas. I mean, ideas in general are a pretty valuable thing for a channel like mine. And I do like to mention them, because I like to talk about my work. It's what I'm interested in. So, yeah, I mean, like for instance, the exotic weapon special that I mentioned in the last question. Now, I've said I could do that, but I've not said I will do that. The major issue when it comes to production is the fact that videos take time to produce. I mean, even a basic, 6 to 8 minute production will take me a week. And some stuff, like 12, 15 minutes, could take me 2 weeks, could take me 3 weeks. I mean, the brief history of graphics, which I'm sure I mentioned probably up to a year before I actually produced it. Took me probably about 3 or 4 weeks to put together. It was nearly a month's solid work. So what can happen is quite often I'll have all of these great ideas. I've got this whiteboard on my wall in my office, and I've got this fantastical palette of videos that could be really, really interesting, really, really valuable, and I've got to pick one to produce. And as I'm producing it, I'll come up with new ideas, and then the palette will shuffle, and sometimes I'll have an idea, and it's maybe not quite as compelling, or maybe it's more risky than one of the other ideas I've got, and it will get shunted down the order slightly. And as time goes on, I maybe think to myself, well, it wasn't that good of an idea to begin with. So these ideas, they're in direct competition with one another, and, sometimes they get superseded by new, exciting ideas, or sometimes I'll just forget about them. I need a disclaimer for the bonus videos. Anything I say here is not to be taken seriously, it's for entertainment purposes only. But really, I should spend less time saying what I'm going to do and just spend more time doing it. But don't worry, I am in fact working on videos right now. Well, obviously right now I'm recording bonus, but apart from that, and there will be plenty of Xbox Ahoy content in 2015. It might not mesh entirely with the stuff that I've promised, but that's not important. Charlie Burton says, "Hey Stu, I know you're mostly a COD gamer, and I'm not sure how long you've played it, but all that aside, how do you feel about COD's advancement over the years? I know it's got a reputation of same game, different name, so it makes me curious of your opinion." Well, hold on, I take minor offence that you calling me mostly a COD gamer. It's true, if you look at my videos on my channel, you might think, oh, he only plays COD, but it's not true. I do play other games, I do. Of course, obviously with the weapon guides and everything else, I have spent quite a few hours playing COD over the last 10 years. But I do pride myself on the breadth of my gaming experience. I haven't played everything, but to be fair, they keep on releasing more games, and it's tough to keep up, So anyway, as far as Call of Duty and the development thereof is concerned, the thing about all things is that they are finite. Everything comes to an end, nothing can continue forever. Well, apart from maybe, metaphysical concepts, but that's not really important in this context. So, at the peak of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, you knew it was going to come to an end, and it did. Same goes for Guitar Hero Rock Band. There was a huge, huge flourish of the popularity of these games, and then they just kind of died. And the same thing is probably going to happen to Call of Duty. That doesn't mean it has to be anytime soon, it could be another 25 years of COD, but I think it's safe to say that the main franchise is on a downturn. Unless they do something really, really radical to reinvigorate it, I can't see them ever reaching the same sort of level as they were with COD 4, with Modern Warfare 2 and Black Ops. And I think it's fair to say that they're kind of trapped by the expectations of a Call of Duty game. They have to include certain things, and so this weight of expectation kind of crushes the potential for innovation within the series. They can't discard kill streaks, because imagine the outcry if you got rid of kill streaks. But if you ask me, kill streaks in Call of Duty are anti-fun. I know, yeah, alright, yeah, they're great if you get them, but even in a 6v6 scenario, if one guy gets a devastating attack helicopter, that's 6 people who are getting pummeled and 5 people who are left bored with nothing to kill. All for the sake of one person's gratification. But they're kind of stuck with kill streaks because people expect them. What was once exciting and fresh and fantastic when you got them has kind of faded into this thing which is just a drudge. So it remains to be seen precisely what they do with the franchise, but I do feel as though they need to take some risks with it. They need to cut off some of the dead weight. Still, there is core and hardcore mode in the game. There are 2 separate modes which are, impossible to balance. Hardcore has never really been balanced. But why are there 2 separate modes? Why is there a dilution of the playlists? Just chop one of them off and focus on one game mode. Remove features instead of adding them and tune them to perfection. It's tough. To breathe life into a franchise that has been as popular as COD is a Herculean task. I wouldn't want to be tasked with it. Treyarch are next up, with a game which I presume is going to be called Black Ops 3 for the brand recognition. Or Black Ops something at least. And, I have actually quite a lot of faith in Treyarch. They've had 3 years to develop. And the Black Ops franchise is actually pretty good overall. Anyway, I don't know, I'm posturing. I think at some point they're probably going to release like the Modern Warfare collection. They're probably going to have some COD 4 revival going on, aren't they? And then after that, I think maybe we'll think, you know what? Those are the glory days. They've passed. Let's move on to a new game. Maybe. Robert Corner says, Stu, as an American viewer, why do so many people ask you about biscuits? And why do you never put out only Battlefield 4 content? Not to be cocky, but these are interesting questions. Why do so many people ask me about biscuits? Probably because biscuits are love, biscuits are life. Biscuits are quite an important part of British culture, you see. We all grew up on them, you know, so if you say custard creams or Jaffa cakes or jammy Dodgers or Nice, or is it nice? Who knows? Oh, you get all that wave of nostalgia, don't you? Me? I like a Garibaldi. Anyway, Battlefield 4 content. Why did I never do any Battlefield 4 content? Ghosts occluded it, really. And I never really played. I played a fair amount. Like, I played like for a few hours, but I never really got into it to the point where I was playing it regularly. And given the fact that I was busy with Ghosts content when Battlefield 4 was in its prime, yeah, it just kind of got shifted to the side. In retrospect, what I should have done, ditched Battlefield 4, ditched Ghosts, and done more interesting stuff. But, you know, hindsight is 20/20. Tyler Lima says, got any tattoos, Stu? I do not. I'm not averse to them. I don't have any sort of moral or religious objection to marking one's own flesh. But no, I just don't have any. There's nothing that I particularly want to make a permanent engraving of. You know, I like things, but I'm never sure if I'm going to like them, like, 20 years in the future. Like I liked the Tasmanian Devil in the 90s, but would I have got him tattooed on me? No. Now, if I were to get a tattoo, what would I be most likely to get? Probably something geometric. I'm a fan of very, very simple, clean designs. Maybe just a black hexagon. Is that boring? It is kind of boring. But yeah, something really, really simple like that. I do quite admire the art that goes into tattoo stuff. I love the sailor, the sort of the classic sailor revival style. That's really nice. And some of the trash polka stuff, the red and black, absolutely brilliant. And then, sort of the pure geometrics or the mandala stuff, that can be quite nice. Muscleman says, so, would you say your wife is pining for the fjords? I get the Monty Python reference, but yeah, actually she is pining for the fjords. She's been talking about booking a Norwegian cruise this year. I think she's actually quite committed to this now. I don't mind. I wouldn't mind seeing Norway. Might be a bit expensive, but, you know, if it keeps the wife happy, it might be worth it. The Jackpot says, Stu, do you have a beard? Yes, I do. I like to let it grow, but sometimes it gets a little bit rampant, and I worry about having a neck beard. So I trimmed it yesterday, actually. I gave it a number 2 all over. So I'm kind of, it's fairly neat and clean at the minute. But I was never a fan of regular shaving of the face. You know, it's irritating, and it takes time out of your day that you can spend wasting on other things. So I just accepted my natural facial hair as it comes. Why fight nature, you know? So Desis says, so, how have you found the Crew so far? The Crew. Yes, I bought the Crew, and I played it sometime in December. I think it was in my week of recuperation where I didn't quite have the mental acuity to actually write or do anything, but I could play a few hours of video games a day. That was about all I could do. There are quite a few things to like about the Crew. I love the scale of the map. I absolutely adore it. The fact that it's, a simulacrum of the entire United States is amazing. And I've got to say, it was implemented pretty well. It's not a perfect one-to-one recreation, but it was believable in a sense, and the scope of it was impressive and almost makes it worth picking up the game. I was also quite a big fan of the upgrade system. The way it works is you've got, I think, it's like 10 to 15 different slots on your car, like your exhaust, your motor core, your tyres, your brakes, your ECU, that sort of stuff. And in each of these slots, you've got different levels of upgrades that you can unlock. And there are different rarities too. There's bronze, silver, gold, and platinum later on. And it was quite neat in the way that it worked, because you could drive across America and you could do challenges as you went. And you would slowly upgrade your car by performing well in challenges. And the challenges were actually pretty well done. You know, there's stuff like driving through gates, there's stuff like sticking to the racing line, there's stuff like going fast, all sorts of different challenges. Some of them were off-road as well, like hill climbs, and they were pretty fun. In fact, probably the most fun element of the crew. Now, as far as things I didn't like, the game absolutely hates you. So many frustrating design decisions when it comes to the main storyline and missions. For a start, the rubber banding is ridiculous. It doesn't matter how powerful your car is, the enemy are always right behind you. There's no rewind, there's no do-over, there's no... If you crash, that's it. The enemy are overtaking you. And you've got to finish first in the races. Second doesn't cut it, third doesn't cut it. You've got to be first, and if you're not first, then that's it, you've got to do the race again. There's no difficulty settings either, so you're kind of stuck with the base difficulty. Whether it's too easy for you or too hard, you can't adjust it. So you do find yourself repeating missions quite often, which I've got to say I'm not really a big fan of. I don't like having to do the same thing again and again. I'm a big believer that games should be designed in such a way that you can always progress. There should never be a point in a game where there's just a brick wall that says, I'm sorry, you can't go any further than this because you failed. I think if you come to a point like that in a game where there's a hard barrier to your progress, and you try again and you fail again, I think the game should give you a little bit of a concession, you know? Because it's not fun to be stuck in a game. It's frustrating. And yeah, you know what, yeah, you could say, well, you should just get good. Well, all right. But I think a well-designed game will help you to overcome those obstacles, even if it cheats a little bit. I was always a fan of a game called WizKid for the Amiga, because that game had dynamic difficulty. If you failed a stage enough times, eventually it would just say, do you know what? I'm going to give it to you. And that was nice. And it gave you a reason to keep on trying and keep on trying to get better, because you knew that if you failed enough times, the game would eventually just give in and say, all right, you've tried enough times, I'm going to let you proceed. And I know, you know, there are some hardcore folk who think, oh, well, that makes the game too easy, doesn't it? Anybody can finish it. Not quite. The game was actually really, really hard to get a perfect ending. You had to collect a number of kittens, and some of the kittens were secret, and you had to know exactly what to do to get them. So there was very much a challenge to the game, because you had to go through the levels in a certain order in order to get all of the kittens without missing any. But if you were a bad player, you could get to the end anyway. Now, it would just tell you, I'm sorry, you haven't got all the kittens. You haven't got enough kitten power to get to the evil antagonist's castle. I'm sorry. He beats you in the rowing race and you get locked out at the end. I should probably add that WizKid is a very, very absurd game. One of my favourite games of all time, I think. It's slightly obscure, but I should do a Retro Hoy episode on it, I think. Anyway, the crew. The crew had so much potential, but the game just hates me. And it wants me to be frustrated, and it just doesn't want to make use of its fantastic map or its innovative upgrade system in any way whatsoever that's fun. So, yeah, I wouldn't say I recommend it. If you can find it cheap, and you want to explore a fake United States of America, then, do you know what? Yeah, go for it. Captain Killfeed says, do you reckon that remastering one of your most successful series would bring good views and responses? Like redoing the Modern Warfare 2 stuff with the new style and quality? I think it's fair to say that the time for Modern Warfare 2 content has passed. You know, I had someone ask if I was going to remaster the original episodes of Iconic Arms. And at least Iconic Arms is timeless, to a degree. Weapon Guide's not so much. But, you know, like some of the stuff that I do, maybe 5 years down the line, I might retread something, or I might revisit a topic, you know. Maybe I could do the best of Iconic Arms with a bigger budget. Maybe I could do it for TV, or whatever future TV is called. So I wouldn't rule it out, but, you know, it's often better to try new stuff, to tackle new ground, because there's often more interest there. Jay Rusty says, just wanted to know, do you play a musical instrument? If so, what is it? And if you don't, what one would you consider picking up? My prime instrument is probably the computer. That's where I've generated most of my music. I do know a little bit of keyboard, I know a little bit of music theory, and I know a few chords on the guitar, but the vast majority of my musical experience is with computer sequencing and audio editing, that sort of thing. Oliver Rogers says, "Hi Stu, are you going to be doing any more Game DNA vids on your main channel?" Actually, the video I'm working on next is a derivation of Game DNA. It's taking a lot of influence from the structure of those videos. It's a combination of the Akimbo Origins video that I did and the Game DNA structure. It was supposed to come out in December, but my illness kind of scuppered that, so it's coming out whenever it's ready, which will be probably within a week or so. Although, as ever, I probably should remind you not to take any sort of promises made in the bonus too seriously. I bought Shadow of Mordor. I got some Amazon credit for Christmas, so I bought a couple of games, and Shadow of Mordor was one of them, and I understand it's quite good, so I might get sucked into that and just spend a week playing that, but I don't want to. I actually want to be productive. I want to get this video out, and then I want to start work on Iconic Arms Season 2. Anyway, we're at 21 minutes, so I think we're about done with this bonus. Schedule should be returning to normal soon enough. You can expect another bonus next Wednesday. And in the meantime, I will be working on this next video for my main channel. It's a marathon, not a race. 2015 runs long into the future, about a year long by my reckoning. There should be plenty of good videos during that time. And so, until next we meet, farewell.